Okay, so this next story is really nice, and it kind of reminds me of Dr. Seuss's, the Lorax, because in the movie, they've got they've got the O'Hare hair guy, right? And the O'Hare hair guy, he's just mean to everybody. He's mean to the people that he sells air to. He's mean to his employees. He's mean to the town in most of the movie, except for at the end when his business gets threatened. And he's just not a nice guy. And it shows in his business, right? Because, yes, he gets his workers to do, whatever he wants. And everybody, everyone kind of listens to him. And everyone buys all his products up until the point where, Ted was his name, I'm pretty sure. He wants to go and plant trees to give people free air instead of selling air, which, how do you even make, I don't know. Anyway, so he runs this huge company, and it's all based on negativity. It's all based on arguments. It's all based on just lying to people, really, and more importantly, manipulating them. And he has cameras all over town. He's a super secret spy man, and he's basically watching Ted specifically as he tries to talk to the Lorax and learn about trees and where they came from and how there used to be trees everywhere, but then he cut all the trees down because the Lorax and he made all these products and sold them all. And it's just really, really, really interesting because at the end of the movie, right, the bad guy loses, but the way that you classify somebody as a bad guy, at least in most traditional senses, is the way they act. And the way they act usually comes down very simply to a principle of argument, and they're always arguing and trying to degrade people, which is just awful. And so, as we look at this example, let's go over to the computer with Patrick O'Hare. It always reminded me of this big bad guy flying up in the sky in his big blimp, and he's always arguing with everybody, even the people that he's literally paying. He's yelling at them, and he's like, you guys aren't doing a job. You didn't catch the kid. I can't believe you just let all this stuff happen. And it's just ridiculous to think that so many people, they're going through their businesses, they're going through their lives, they're going through their relationships, and it's all based on argument, and that argument is just absolutely crushing their ability to connect with other people, which is just ridiculous. And so you start to have this come up, it's just insanely crazy sort of to see the way that these guys treat each other, and more importantly, how they actually grow. And so in the example that Dale has, he has this student named Patrick O'Hare, and he joins one of the classes, read the book, etc., and he had very, 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 very little education, and he really, really, really liked to get into the ring, and he really liked to fight with people. He'd once been a chauffeur, and he came to Dale because he'd been trying without much success to sell trucks. And a little questioning brought out the fact that he was always fighting and antagonizing the very people he was trying to sell. He would fight with his prospects. He would antagonize his prospects. If a prospect said anything derogatory about the trucks that he was selling, he would turn red and literally fight these guys, cut their throat. Just really upset, cutthroat attitude with them. And he won, a lot of arguments, right? He would win arguments with clients or potential clients, but he wouldn't actually sell them anything. So he would make zero money because he was arguing with his clients, which is just absolutely freaking berserk. And they were just pointless, stupid arguments. It didn't matter. And he walked out of offices. He was right, but he never actually sold anything. And his problem was not that he needed to talk better, he needed to negotiate better, but instead that he needed to refrain from talking and avoid verbal fight. And so because of that, he was literally scaring his own clients away, which is just ridiculous, just insane. And his problem, it was just a frank problem of arguments, which were just destroying everything, right? They don't do any good whatsoever, even if you win, right? Mr. O'Hare, he became one of the sales superstars for the White House Motor Company. How did he do that? Here is the story in his own words. After this transformation, after learning about this content, after understanding that arguments were not the way to go. Excuse me. Oof. if I walk into a buyer's office now and he says, "What? A white truck? They're no good. I wouldn't take one if you gave it to me. I'm going to buy a Who's It truck." Then instead of getting pissed off and angry and arguing and all this crap that just doesn't matter, I mean, obviously, like, he cares that they buy his truck because that's what his job is. But not that much. A Who's It truck is a good truck. If you buy a Who's It truck, you'll never make a mistake. The Who's Its are made by a fine company and sold by good people. And so he shows this client positivity about the competitors, about the others, and about his other choices, and makes him feel happy, like he has the options. And in return, I mean, this guy is freaking speechless. He has no clue what's going on because there's just no room for argument. If you agree with somebody, they can't argue with you. If he says a Who's It is best and I say sure it is, then he has to stop arguing. He can't keep on saying it's the best when you're agreeing with them, because why else are they talking, right? What's interesting is when they get off the subject of Who's It's and begin to talk about the good points of the white truck, they start to come around, because the only reason they're still talking to this guy is because they know that they're interested in purchasing this truck, right? And that's why they schedule the meeting. And the arguments just distract the meeting. You don't want to have the argument. Like, the point of the meeting is not to argue. The point of the meeting is to agree, and specifically to agree on a price and agree on a transaction and get the deal closed. And so if you want to have a big agreement like that, you need to have incremental small agreements, right? You can't argue with people. You want to agree with them along the way and make it easy for them to agree with you by having similar points, similar statements, and understanding their point of view. And it takes, this guy has to come down off his pedestal, and he needs to just stand below or on the same level, or maybe even a little bit lower than this guy, and say, you know what, you're right. I'm going to sacrifice my ego. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to point out why you're wrong. And instead, I'm going to agree. And while it might make him feel worse in the short term, it might hurt his ego just a little bit. In the long term, what it's going to do is it's going to significantly boost that relationship so much more than any amount of bragging or just egotistical behavior could ever even dream of, because it's one simple concept of really connecting people instead of arguing with them. You want to connect with them. You want to agree with them. You see, this guy says, when there was a time when a remark like this first one would have literally made him scarlet and red and orange, and he would start arguing against the Who's It's, and the more he argued against it, the more the prospect argued in favor of it, because arguments only strengthen the other side's position, even if you think they're wrong, and it'll also only strengthen your position, even if you're wrong.